the main part of the plan is the 4 quadrants. So we decided to divide the city into 4 sections because it's easier to kind of work with, and it gives us the opportunity to drill down a little bit more in those 4 sections based on, you know, what may be unique to each of those sections rather than do it as a whole. Within each section, within each quadrant, we kind of cover the relevant items from the state statutes for the analysis of the 3-mile plan. So we'll go into more detail on the utilities, roads, parks, fire districts, proposed land uses within that quadrant. And that's kind of the meat and potatoes of the document. It's really where we're going to look for a specific annexation to see what the guidance is within that quadrant. And that's kind of the background on the whole plan. And then kind of the last thing I want to go over is that, as I've mentioned, this is a work in progress. And so, you know, my apologies again in doing this, but we sent out the draft because we wanted to get this process going. But we knew that we were going to continue to see things we wanted to edit and change. And I would like to kind of go over some stuff that's relevant to the county so you guys know. We've already talked about them and want to see a little bit of different language. We made some editorial changes to fix grammar or wording that doesn't quite accurately reflect the ground truth or scenario, and just a really benign one was that the person who wrote this used a very technical geographic term that was accurate, but it's not one anybody around here uses, and that's cuesta for Mesa Verde. So, you know, we're changing that to just say escarpment. We don't call it. No one. I don't know. Maybe somebody in the room knows.
I've never heard that word until you told me.
So,
deal with the BLM more.
Another thing that some of you may have noted was that we said that there was a joint meeting between city staff. We clarified that the joint meeting was between city staff and appointed and elected officials of the county. That was not a joint meeting with the city appointed and elected officials and the county appointed and elected officials. Only city staff was in those interviews. Mm-hmm. So back in
and well, no, I was just with county, huh?
Yeah, staff. Yeah. So we did interviews. You participated. I don't know who else you did. Okay, it's been about, what was that, 2016?
It was a year ago.
It was a year ago. So I mean, it just wasn't quite accurate what was written there. These weren't elected officials coming together and making decisions. It was basically interviews of county people to kind of get your opinion of the 3-mile plan and thoughts about 1 mile and 3-mile area. So that was clarified. And then really more specifically, staff kind of identified some stuff in the quadrants that we wanted to be more specific about, and just to be totally transparent, kind of what we were envisioning. We've provided more specific information in the summary for each quadrant. So for quadrant 1, we added language that said west of Hartman Draw was appropriate for open space and recreation, and that east of Hartman Draw was more appropriate for residential and non-residential development because the draw poses access issues for, obviously commercial, industrial, and high-density residential. We noted that quadrant 2 was appropriate for residential development within the 1 mile area. We noted that quadrant 3 was suitable for additional commercial, light, and heavy industrial development. This was kind of just implied, but we wanted to just really spell it out. In quadrant 4, we noted that within 1 mile of the city, mixed use and residential development is encouraged, and beyond the 1 mile area, it would be good to see a transition to fewer concentrations of developed areas. So those summaries provide the requirement of the state statutes to have proposed land uses for each quadrant. Since then, myself, Doug, and the other city planner went through and made a map where we actually kind of fleshed out that summary I just stated for each quadrant. So there's now a visual aid that goes with those summaries. And kind of the last thing I want to note is that map is a draft. Doug is probably the only person who's seen it. I've not seen his final version. I saw the bubble map that was done with a paint tool on a computer screen. That has not been shown to any other city staff or city planning commission or the city council. So
very, very draft.
very, very draft.
Super duper draft.
Yeah, you guys are the first group to see it, and so, just the caveat that, again, that could change, and we'll obviously forward any changes that come from the city back to you guys, but we would like to hear kind of your thoughts on all of this, so, I'm gonna turn it back over to Leanne and kind of let you guys.
Well, I think what we should do is let Doug, if you wouldn't mind going through, you and Rachel going through the maps that you created and just giving basically like a summary of what we did this morning so that it's clear. I think the way that we're doing it now is a really good thing, because I think it gives all of us the time to digest it a little bit before we compile our comments to present to the Board of County Commissioners. So, if Doug, are you okay with proceeding?
Yes. So, I guess let me just kind of step back to how over the months we've kind of come up with these 3 mile maps by showing you a few of the other ones. So part of this final map was looking at a variety of things. Just bear with me. These are the assessor's land classifications. We took a look at how the property is currently being used, and considered that. I think we have a map of that. These 8.5 by 11 maps might be readable enough to kind of see trends. And then we're also looking at environmental constraints. That was always, I think that's Tracy, that's kind of a standard thing that you look at. Where are the what you call critical lands? So critical lands are often floodplains and wetlands, as defined by the data sets that the Army Corps of Engineering puts together. So you kind of pre-identify these things. So if you go through annexations, then you kind of have an idea of where these issues might be and what might need to be mitigated. Another thing that we looked at is these areas of very steep slopes that might constrain development in a way. So you can look at development patterns. Geology, what are your soil types? And I think they're in your map, so we don't need to go over them now, but some of them just have to do with, where are there existing electric lines that can service areas, or lack of electric lines that can service areas within that map, within the 3 mile area. But really what we're talking about today, we focused on the 1 mile. We're kind of narrow it down to look specifically within 1 mile of the city limits, and what the kind of brainstorming future land uses may look like. And one thing, pretty much what this started out with was a combination of, here's our critical lands, primarily around our draws and our steep slopes. That's what represents this. I don't know if you can see my cursor, if you have a pointer.
Oh, pointer. Yep, right there. Thank you, Tracy.
So over here in Hartman, you have your, obviously, a little bit of critical lands. We didn't create this. This was something that combination of wetlands, flood zones, steep slopes. The other condition that we're looking at is we have existing residential subdivisions. Not the greatest symbology here, but that's kind of just a condition. We're not going to overlay and say what that should be. It already is something throughout these areas. And then the other thing that we're looking at that we pulled out of some data sets are these agricultural lands. These are pretty much prime irrigated farmland. For instance, this field as you're coming into town. We tried to identify, for instance, this newer field as you're coming in off of Alamosa. So we want to know where those were, so we don't just start saying, well, that needs to be agriculture if it's prime agricultural land, and that's what it's currently being used as. And then from there, it was just kind of breaking it down into a few different categories of commercial, industrial, residential, and a mixed use zone. So that's pretty much what we're looking at. For instance, here are the two enclaves. So obviously, thinking those could be annexed at some point. That's a prime example of something you might have to have an idea of what the use of that might be. And we colored this one brown for residential, and this one as a mixed use category. So I think comments would be really good on this map to say we think we're way off base with these categories, these areas. Like Tracy said, it is just trying to think ahead of how that may get developed. It's not a zoning category. It's just, well, this is probably going to trend towards this use, so we're going to think about that, put it on a map, put it in a plan, so that if a proposal comes in, we can reevaluate what we thought it might be versus what somebody's proposing it to use it as.
Is that a new one? Is that the new
That's
one?
brand
This
new.
one's brand new, so I didn't have that one at the time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like Trish said, it's a draft.
It's very
but,
much draft.
It's hot off the press.
But I think the comments are important because we did look at an area around the intersection of 26 Mildred and L up here, and categorize that as a commercial type zone. Thought it might be developing that way. We did have some commercial up the highway here, and then of course, some of these are already commercial uses, so you're just kind of filling out that area and just saying, well, this looks like a commercial area. The area as you're thinking about 3rd Street and 7th Street coming through with the bus barn, that could be a lot of different things, but it'll probably be a mix of commercial and maybe some possible residential in there, and as well off-road H here. That's a good question. And then we kind of picked those areas, and then we just filled out the rest, saying, well, residential. If we can't identify it as a commercial, industrial, or mixed-use area, then just kind of fill up the blank. Maybe I'll just develop as residential in the future.
What's the red and yellow stripe? Right where you're.
This one right here, that's a mixed use. So, Tracy, do you want to describe how it?
Yeah, mixed use would be, kind of more, neighborhood business type stuff, and residential, high density residential could go in a place like that. And that, we don't want to see super, intense development there, but sometimes it could trend towards that direction because mixed use is a little bit broad. But we wanted to note that, it'd probably we have in the new land use code a planned development option, and that gives you a lot more mixed, integrated types of development. So be like restaurants, apartments, shopping plazas, stuff like that. So again, that kind of gets fleshed out more when we actually name the zoning at the time.
There's the one right there underneath Cortez.
This one?
Or something?
That's by Walmart,
Yeah.
behind Big R.
This is the high school and Walmart, and this is the little shopping mall with the
So that
dollar
portion
store.
right there is not Union City as a county?
That's correct.
It's county land.
Yeah,
It's
and,
in colonies first.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
and those are enclaves, and so the city can annex those, you know, I don't know what the political will is on that right now, but it needs to be, again, transparent. Those are there's those two parcels, those are two parcels that the city could annex.
But it's been like that for years, obviously.
Yeah.
Had no desire to it. It's kind of out.
Yeah, it's just kind of a no man's land out there, and the enclaves do the reason why the reason why the cities are given that you can annex, you can force annexation of those is because they could cause law enforcement issues there. You know, who responds? You know, if something happens here, then the sheriff has to be called. So that's kind of why that state law came about. But I mean, this is kind of the perfect example of why we would have a mixed use, because we don't know, you know, is a residential development or is a target come in and want to locate in this area, you know, cause crime for a number of different uses or high density residential, you know. That's kind of I think.
So how would that work if, I mean, I guess that would have to work out, let's say Target, they were looking at that piece of property in the top of their store right there. City services are obviously going to be used, but it's still in the county.
Well,
So you have to annex into the city.
chances are in that scenario they would be annexing the city. And then, you know, if Target really wanted to go in there, I'm gonna bet the city's gonna go, okay.
Yeah, the city's really gonna want
Yeah,
Target to go there, they're really gonna want to annex.
yeah, and they'll probably zone it commercial. You know, I mean, it's mixed use because if Target didn't come in and we saw somebody that had an integrated development plan, because that's a lot of people are doing those, where it'd be like, you know, you might have apartments with some shopping centers and stuff like that, then, you know, because it's called mixed use, we could say, well, that fits and you can do that. So, or somebody just wanted to do apartments, then it could also go that direction. So all those land uses would really be appropriate there.
That's why it's not really zoning, it's just the idea of it's a multitude of different.
Almost trying to predict what would want to go there.
It's long range planning, basically.
Yeah. And then there's even like the industrial areas too, where there's already some industrial development
Yeah.
where you can focus on.
Industrial, and I think drew the commercial around that area just because it was frontage to the highway, is why it, it's the line between industrial and commercial, but that's why. And then, of course, up here we already have the RV park and the lumber yard and another intersection. Could be a commercial area.
Yeah, and Doug and I we kind of had discussed that one in particular about whether, I thought commercial was appropriate. I think Doug was thinking more mixed use, so, just
Yeah.
for, but, that area, oh no, not that area, I'm thinking of the wrong place.
But I think, a lot of it is also, you do want to preserve the character of the area as it develops. So I think the agricultural look to it doesn't mean that any of these parcels couldn't come in with subdivision plan and go ahead and do it. But that's what their current use is right now, and as prime irrigated farmland. So.
Were you able to do the overlay on?
Yeah, so the overlay doesn't show up too well, and this is something we'll
Oh,
have
it's the little red line. Okay. I can see it.
Leanne talk about here. Let's just pick this, and the other ones, is this line right here, and that's the county's commercial industrial overlay that was adopted years ago.
Well, I just wanted to make sure that whatever recommendations that we might be making or should be making are consistent with that plan, and even if this plan, throughout the vetting of it, we decide to change that,
You're talking the commercial overlays?
Yeah, so like, do you remember how, north of Cortez on 145, they didn't want any industrial, light industrial or heavy industrial, it was just strictly commercial. I think the city's position on it is that they want strictly residential.
Yeah, too late.
Well, in a dream, in a perfect world, that's what you guys would want, and in our perfect world, that's,
145? Yeah, well, and that's a rumor I've heard, is that a lot of people said that 145, they want to stay residential. They don't want us to rezone within the city to commercial, so, I'm just going on
right.
what I've heard.
So,
There
with,
already is commercial though, within the city.
Oh, there's-
Along 145.
well, there's quite a bit,
Well,
and we
it's-
talked about that earlier today. There's quite a bit of smaller
Right.
mom and pop sort of businesses, definitely nothing,
Even at the 1 mile mark, you've got the lumberyard, the RV park.
The little rock thing.
the rock people, churches,
We've got the snow shop.
So it used to be that.
right.
Once you get to Road P, that
Pretty well, the ends it.
I guess I just wanted to make sure that our overlay, as we were looking at this plan, whether it be the 1 mile or the 3 mile, that we kept in mind all that work that we did to come up with.
Well, we did that with the city, we did that with all the different towns.
All the
and so it's not
municipalities,
like we dreamed it up.
we did how many outreach meetings? Oh my gosh, lots of them. And so, that was a very, the master zoning plan and the commercial industrial overlay were both very tedious endeavors. So I just want to make sure that those are captured in whatever we decide
Right.
when we move forward.
I remember the discussion when we were going through it, it was like, do we want to go through and, handpick parcel by parcel which one would be appropriate for commercial and industrial? And we said, no, we're going to pick a buffer and we're going to go up these stretches. If that stretch is appropriate to be considered, we're just going to go up that stretch. We're not going to get into
The nitty-gritties.
Nitty-gritty and handpicking, so we didn't draw it around the subdivision, even though,
It's my subdivision, by the way.
Even- yeah.
But we were also
even though
very,
they won't allow it right here.
we also were very,
There's no
very
hard asphalt plans.
tedious about going through and making sure, infrastructure was available in those areas, and, it wasn't going to be, the less challenging areas for that type of development. So, it wasn't just that we thought, well, and it wasn't a willy-nilly thing. We talked to water companies and electric, and to make sure that it would be an easier.
Mostly in places where it already existed anyway.
Right. Yeah, close to highway corridors.
Annexation properties that are already served by Montezuma.
Well, and that's the question, is will we ever annex those properties? Probably. That is kind of, in my opinion.
Complicates.
Yeah, we don't really know what would happen. Right now, we doubt that we could, but I have no idea what kinds of
Hurdles.
things might come up in the future. If somebody
Kind of
really
deals
wants to
might be
do
made,
a
or-
big commercial development with a piece of land and they need fire flows and stuff like that, I don't know what that looks like. So.
Is that ultimately up to the property owner though?
Not really. Well, that's, again, there's rules about serving that, have to be followed.
Say up to that 1926 feet clause. That we certainly want to do.
Right. So I don't think the city's really thinking that. That kind of that point, if the property owner wants to negotiate something, I would assume it'd be up to them to be set free.
So it would be easier technically to annex a vacant property
Well,
with no infrastructure,
provide any services currently.
yeah, than it would be to annex a property that is being served by, let's just say Montezuma Water Company.
yeah.
Because you'd have to switch them onto the city water.
Right. Well, and the reason people want to go on city water is because we can serve, those higher intensity of uses. So if you want to build multifamily housing or, something that requires fire flows, fire prevention, like water systems usually have to be able to provide that capacity for commercial development or it gets complicated. So well, that's why people tend to annex, is because they don't want to have 3-acre lot subdivisions, they want to have quarter-acre lot subdivisions, and the city can provide all those water taps, so they come to the city and ask to be annexed in general. So, yeah. It's usually the motivation for people annexing.
But then on the flip side, they don't want to annex because then their building regulations and things like that, and their taxes and everything else increase, so.
And that was one of my questions is, how much are we going to be restricting the private property rights? People wanting to use their property as they want to use it instead of how it's laid out here. Aren't we going to be restricting their private property rights?
Well, again, we can't annex them, so they would be voluntarily coming into the city, or they would be the minority vote in a petition or a vote. In which case that, that goes to a vote or a petition, and in which case, they just come out of that on that side of it.
Well, that really wasn't the question asked.
Well, we're not restricting private property rights because we don't have any authority over the properties right now.
But the way that you're laying this out for commercial and residential, and what if I want to build a residential and you've got it laid out as commercial, and what restrictions is going to be on me there on my property?
Well, if you annex into the city and through a process, you get zoned a city zoning district.
Are you talking annexation or just this overlay in general?
Just the overlay in general.
No, the overlay is just an idea. I mean, it's their vision, not our vision. I mean, that's why I
don't
wanted
think
to
they deny
incorporate.
you that.
But as the
just because it
vision
wouldn't
grows,
fit.
will the restrictions grow with it?
No. Not unless the Board of County Commissioners.
Unless you apply for more DOLA grants and more grants, and they say this is the way it's got to be.
But the Board of County Commissioners would have to enter into either an intergovernmental agreement or some sort of official binding agreement with the city saying that, this is the criteria for annexation. At this point, it's a voluntary thing. Like I said, this is more of a vision for them, just like we have, we had ours. Ours is a little different. The city of Cortez doesn't really like the way we handle the gateways sometimes, but there are gateways right now. Okay, sorry. But, ultimately, it's just an idea of how they would like to see move forward. I spoke with Tracy earlier today and said, maybe, because I agree within the one, especially with the master street plan, making sure that whatever development we do, if there could potentially be a road that's going to be extended through that development, we need to make sure that that's covered, for sure. Especially in the 1 mile. So I think there are small things we can do, like requiring applicants to consult with the city staff in that 1 mile area, where we actually require comments instead of request comments. Just simple things like that. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, I guess, but I think that we're here to protect private property rights. That's one of the big issues. And if the people don't have a choice down the road, if they don't have a choice of how to develop their land and how they want to use their land, then I think we're restricting their rights.
So they can't annex a property without the member volunteering.
Right.
I think
You're talking about the overlay as far as your zoning, what your
That's only over half the owners. So it's going to be 40-some% of owners that might. Which is.
I'm not sure how that works.
Well, so, let's say this is a city, and this is an area, and, like there's all these properties, right, like, I don't know, this is probably really conceptual, right? So half of the squares here want to be annexed into the city, and they meet the requirements for, the contiguity of the whole entire area, right? these property owners want to be annexed and these don't. So they get a petition or they take it to a vote. And it's a majority vote. Yes, this person, this person, this person, and this person now get brought into the city. So in that situation, by the democratic process, these people will probably be subject to rules they didn't want to be subject to.
Would that be a subdivision?
No.
Okay.
No, that's, these are individual
So
properties.
you can get annexed into the city if you don't want to.
I think that.
But that's, I
this
think, how
is-
it was to begin with. I mean, that's
That's state law.
state law.
And that's
So, I mean,
not-
that's not anything the cities,
Right.
I mean, that's the state statute
Yeah.
that states that.
This is kind of like a parcel is in the county, it's subject to county zoning and regulations.
Correct.
If they want to, annex into the city, say up here, and they want to annex into the city, then it's going to be, and they do agree to the terms, then it's going to be a city zoning category is going to be applied to them. So I think then the city's going to look at this and say, well, it looks like this is an area then that we've identified as residential. What are your plans with this property? And probably just negotiate out. But you're kind of, the whole point is to say this is what a future city-style zoning category might be if you annex.
And they would be choosing to do that because they obviously see a benefit to them. And usually that benefit is, like I said, they can get, I don't know what your absolute maximum density is, but on an acre in the city, you can get like 5 parcels, like 5 lots with water taps and sewer. So then they see the value of those 5 lots as being greater than 1 lot with 1 house. So usually that's why they choose to do it. And that's in a residential scenario. So, they're making that trade-off voluntarily for what they consider their property rights. It actually, in that scenario, gain density unless the county has a totally different approach to density in the future.
What is the rate of growth in Montezuma County now per
For
year?
residents,
Chelsea just
like
told us that.
demographics,
Population?
I thought we were like,
1%.
Yeah, it's low. I can't remember. Yeah, we just talked about that, with the fiber
Population
stuff.
growth?
It was pretty minimal.
So we're saying 1%? The schools have less than they did at one time, I think. Less children.
Well, there was times we had major projects like the dam and all that. I mean, people were here, they were transient, but they lived here for years.
Well, we definitely are in a boom to bust economy.
Kill Morgan's project,
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of things brought people here, but when it was said and done, they left.
And tourism. Any other thoughts?
So how's it working now on the 3 mile or the 1 mile? We've put off our meetings, changed the date of our meetings so that the city could be aware of what we'll be looking at our meeting.
Yeah.
And they can put comments and.
Are you talking about meeting the second
Well, just, we changed the dates of our meeting months and months ago. And I thought that was the reason, so that the city would have a heads up before
As far as-
something came to us,
Mhm.
okay? That's still gonna be the case, and that's not just the 1 mile, that's also the 3 mile.
Yeah, and I think, with that whole thing, the state statutes, when the city has an adopted streets plan, the city has a certificate on the plat for signature. So in order for that plat to actually finally be approved, the city planning commission has to review it for conformance with the master streets plan and sign that certificate. So we kind of have to review it to approve it so they can actually record the plat, which I think is the big main.
It was
reason
for the
why-
applicant, not necessarily, it was more for the benefit of the applicants than the city.
Right.
Because otherwise it would have kicked it back another month.
Yeah, yes.
Right, because you wouldn't have to do that.
Right.
Did the city have a comment on the DNO?
No.
Yes. Do you know?
We sent a letter.
Well, they, no, they chose not to.
They chose not,
I thought they chose not to.
Planning
the council.
Commission sent a
Planning
letter.
Commission sent a letter, council did not.
They were split.
Yeah. Those things are a little more vague. As far as, what our role is in reviewing and commenting on those things. There is some stuff in the 1 mile area about certain types of uses that the city does have some authority to approve. It's not real clear to me. I don't think anybody's exercising that authority presently. So non-subdivisions kind of fall more into a review as a courtesy to the city.
So the city does have some oversight within the 1 mile.
Well, not the way we've been doing
It's
things lately.
more, they can make review and recommendations like you do to the commissioners.
But they can't.
But as far as enforcement of, they don't have,
Authority.
right, outside of their pond.
Unless everybody wants to do an IGA.
Right,
And again, that again would be voluntary from the county.
right,
Then the county will be involved.
right. So food for thought. Again, this is a very preliminary plan, so hopefully that'll give you some time to digest and think and cuss and discuss.
What are you looking at for a finished date on this?
Our planning commission meets once a month, so we're having a work session on Tuesday. It's a special meeting, I think, like this one is, just to talk about the 3 mile plan, and then I'll give them all the edits that staff has provided. We'll get their comments probably at least at that meeting and possibly 1 or 2 more meetings. I'd really like this to be approved by the end of this year and hopefully sooner, like in the fall. But, I think if they take a look at this and say, this looks pretty solid, and we think, with the edits that staff has made and agreeing with the draft map, that process could go a lot quicker. It may just be a meeting or 2 with them and council before they actually are going through the hearing process. But we'll forward all the changes back to you guys.
So when would you like our comments to you by? So if we meet, so next month we would meet
On the 10th.
10th.
Yeah, so, we'll meet on August 1st for after the work session. I'll know more on Tuesday about where the direction for this is going, but if we had changes that you could look at on the 10th and get comments on the 10th back to us, that would be good.
Okay.
Because it won't be adopted before.
We get a copy of any changes prior to.
As soon as she has it in my inbox, I'll have it in yours.
I think, just as I was reading through it, probably some of the best comments made would be in these quadrant assumptions and what they see as the uses and strengths or possibilities, because this is written by a consultant in Sugar Land, Texas. And while they know how to look up state statute and summarize rules and things like that, they're not from here. They're making assumptions on those. So I think that review would be very valuable.
So that would be chapter 7 and chapter 8.
So I think that's the meat and potatoes of this whole thing, besides explaining why they're having it. So
Right.
And-
Which we don't need to go through the methodology or the,
You said that you had an overlay possibly of what your proposal is according to an overlay of what we currently have. I mean, is any of that changed as far as your overlay, as far as zoning, what you?
Yeah, the city hasn't looked at that purple hash line with the counties overlay, what do you guys call it, overlay?
Commercial industrial overlay.
That's just a broad category though, right? Yeah, we haven't incorporated that into our, I mean, what I think right now, if you guys are looking at that and you want to say, hey, look at this city, that's a good starting point for the discussion on that one. Just to forward us that purple line, give us like the rules that go with it, and we can discuss it with our planning commission and say, what do you guys think about this?
Okay.
Well, it's in place.
Right, but as
Yeah.
far as if we're gonna
Yeah, they see
steer ours
that,
differently.
you know, we'd
Oh.
like to see
Oh, yeah.
if their thoughts on that are.
And that's something that you can bring to them next week.
If you get me that stuff, I'll. If you
That
get
is on my-
it to me
it
at
is-
8 o'clock tomorrow morning. I'll put it in the.
I am going to say 8:15.
I can also throw it out there on. The
Can I please have that?
Well, the function of an IGA, would they have regular scheduled meetings or times when something needed discussed?
Well, the IGA could go in a lot of different directions. One where we had a joint city planning commission, which is a lot of the times that's what happens. They'll have representatives from each. Sometimes, most of the time, I think it is representatives from each planning commission sits on that board, and then they would convene when there was a project in the joint planning area. And usually, whatever the IGA says, it may say, well, within the 1 mile area, we'll defer to a future land use map that the city does with a lot more specificity than that one. Or it might just be really broad criteria, or it might say, if you're gonna need sanitation and water, then you're just gonna be annexed into the city and we'll just kind of kick you over to them. And those are just ways it could look. It's not how it has to be, but yeah, if there was a joint planning commission, it would probably only convene when necessary. Yeah. There's a lot of ways that could go. One of the things that came up in those interviews was, if you didn't have an IGA, we could finish our land use code, our new one, give it to you guys, and you guys could kind of look at relevant development standards and decide which ones you thought you were comfortable with adopting into your own land use code. Those could only apply in certain locations, such as along the highway corridors. So that's in here, but that was a discussion that was had with the county commissioners. One of them in particular actually sort of said, what about that as an option instead of an IGA? So,
Yes.
again, it would be up to you guys to say we want to move forward with that or not. And the idea behind that is if we eventually annex, then the development kind of matches. It also improves the appearance of the gateways.
I don't know if you had told me, but a little bit of history of like why they have the 3 mile area is because the state found out that there were circumstances where places where the annexations were happening so quickly that they were annexing up to 3 miles out in any given year. Obviously crazy to think about, but that's good.
Yeah, that's not us. But, we were, I guess a victim of what's going on the Front Range, and so that's how that 3 mile boundary got
As
put in
usual.
place.
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine some of those
Yeah, they're growing
expanding
1%.
that quickly.
Yeah, and that's kind of why, when Doug and I sat down and when, we were kind of having these discussions about a future land use map, actually a map, we said, well, we really don't need to go out to the 3 mile area, and I kind of checked in with DOLA on if we do our 3 mile plan this way, are we meeting your requirements, and they said yes. So that's why we felt we could have broad guidance out to the 3 mile boundary, but we could only really look specifically at the 1 mile area.
Could I ask how big that DOLA grant was?
DOLA gave us $100,000 and the city matched $100,000 for the whole project. And in that budget, we have the land use code and they worked on this 3 mile plan. And we also had some money available to do the online software that our code will be viewed by the public when this is finally published.
So is DOLA gonna keep giving grants to keep this thing alive and keep it moving?
No, we're on our own now. City, it's on the city.
So, when we look at rewriting our land use code, we're gonna hire that out, right? It's gonna be contracted out, is that?
Well, I know that we talked about the comp plan, which needs, the comprehensive plan, which needs to be done
First.
prior.
Is that something the county plans on, they're not going after a grant for that, are they?
Don't know yet,
We're not
actually.
going to Kinder Morgan's soup money.
I don't know, you know, we don't know, but I mean, I think it was very clear at the last meeting that we don't feel that we have the time, expertise, or
Right.
to,
I'm just
To do an
wondering if the
comprehensive
county had the funds to take care of that themselves.
well, and that's something that needs to be presented to the commissioners at some point when we feel comfortable to present that. But I just, so as far as growth-wise, I don't know if you looked at this one. So, I mean, that basically says, you know, from 1996 to 2016, that's a good idea of a decade's worth of,
We're shrinking?
Yeah, but
1886 to 1956, man.
Yeah, we really grew that.
20 years, 2 decades worth. Mm-hmm. Oh, no, it doesn't say the change, but,
Yeah.
well, it does, but it doesn't have the
15
difference.
minus 3380.
Quick, do it ahead.
I was doing, plugging it.
So, I mean, that's, you know, in 20 years, that's,
I mean, yeah, I mean, the ones that really happened in the, you know, 2005, early 2000s, you know, were the Brandon's Gate, and then you had then the Walmart annexation, and then the big hotel that came in. So there were a number that happened there in the early 2000s. And then the Swartz annexation. Oh, thanks. Yeah, this annex. Oh, that was 1977. Cortez Land Cattle, which is still primarily vacant land. Southern Bluffs is 97.
Brandon's Gates the most recent.
This one is
Oh, right, yeah, I keep reading about that one, because it's really not, like, it's just
Ann Hawkins.
same kind of ballgame.
I guess there's not much.
Yeah. Who knows?
well, I just think that, I mean, that right there is probably the most concise representation that we can show that says, okay, this is,
Yeah.
this isn't an epidemic that's going to
not.
cause.
No, and I mean, these things
I
are not
forgot I even
static,
made
they're
it.
dynamic. Everything is updated to reflect kind of what, you know, is happening. So, you know, whatever the colors are on the map can certainly
Change.
change,
Mhm.
become, you know, more, they usually change towards more intense development and backwards.
Right.
Just, you know, maybe when the, I keep saying this, maybe when the broadband's here, we'll have all these companies wanting to relocate here.
You're just trying to throw salt on wounds because you're in the hot seat right now.
That's just every conversation I hear about, you know, the future for all communities is centered around that discussion.
Really?
Well, I mean, in the academic discussions about growth in the United States, I mean, the tech industry is a hot topic.
Well, yeah.
Revenue,
It's now a utility.
Google or
in
one of
people's
these
minds.
companies is talking about doing broadband nationwide, but
I didn't realize it was such a deficiency.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I don't think like that, but I feel like my internet works pretty fast. Why can't people have businesses here? I don't know.
You're in the wrong place.
I don't.
Or the right place.
I just might not be the right internet user.
Maybe
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
Well, reading through the comments from the broadband survey, when you actually read through there was 4 dozen comments, people writing in, it's like, they're talking about being a road G or at specific areas throughout the county, they just don't have any options. They've tried all their options and none of them are working, so it is limiting.
My
Any
coworker
word,
did
when
that.
I spoke to him the other day, the gentleman that came in and was putting up the tower, providing.
Mr. Hennig.
Yes.
He will be coming to talk to the commissioners, I believe, later this month.
He's on his
Warren,
second Tower now.
third.
Did he ever get landowners or?
He's actually up and running. He's got customers.
Hey, I got an email, or he called the other day, he's in our area now, they can provide service in our area.
Yeah, they said they were sending out mailers, or he said they
I
were
thought that was all on hold until we had the rest of the neighbors in the subdivision.
He's been co-locating onto other towers. Like he's
Okay.
co-located onto the Annex Tower and a couple
So
other.
we're good for it?
You get it,
Get rid of Central?
Way to go,
25
Tracy.
meg.
Have you heard how
Segway.
that's going? There's-
Just from him,
Oh.
which obviously he's gonna. I know my son has a friend whose parents have it, and he says it's just amazing for
How much
the.
is it?
It's a little bit higher than,
Central?
It's like $80 a month for 20
But it's 25 meg.
minutes.
Yeah.
Which is like double
Can
what
you
you
get
can
less?
get.
Yes.
Yes,
You can get 10, 15, or 25.
and it's like a $200 installation fee. I think I want to say. So you do have the equipment installation, but.
Anyways, Tracy.
I'm just
anything.
Wait it.
I know.
Totally.
innocent hearing about business development and how
You can choose if they want.
recruiting new businesses is tied to this
Well,
project.
you need to be in those conversations, ma'am.
I'm with you. I don't think it's gonna bring everybody.
Does anyone have any more questions for Tracy before we move on to
Who tries to find businesses.
noise?
No,
Please think of more.
not exactly.
I mean, I don't know how you want to gather comments.
That's a
but-
good question.
Are you planning on doing, because I know that you had spoken earlier about doing some community meetings, are you still going to do that or not?
Yeah, we're gonna do at least one. I did kind of postpone that
There's the
because I
money,
wanted to
Development
edit the
Association.
document more before I do
So
that.
that's probably going to be more next month-ish,
Yes, but it could
Chelsea
be,
was an
even
Yeah.
later?
not,
was
no,
hired
it'll probably happen in August.
employee by Canada.
I'll be in
The county
line.
contributed to that organization, just left.
It has any, yeah.
So they don't have city staffers and times. Planning has also
Okay, we'll just trash that.
taken that role. Oh, city
August 10th,
developer
you might be done.
calls.
You might be gone August 10th.
A target
If I can get out
calls.
before the box is.
Doug, do you have anything else to add about?
I'm waiting July 30th.
I don't think so. Unless, we have the quadrant map, which, that hand in hand with the quadrant summaries, which my big nitpick thing is I think it's not great. It's not perfect.
What's your nitpick?
Well, the quadrant summaries that the consultant came up with, I just think it could use additional comments and review.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned the edits that you and I had talked about that I've already made on those summaries.
Mhm.
But, I mean, further than that,
I didn't spend a lot of time with it.
Okay.
well, hopefully, I don't know.
Well, thank you for joining us and being so patient through all of our questions.
Oh, no problem. Anytime.
Where were you born? Who are your parents? What do they do
What's
for a
your
living?
social security number? Excuse me,
Thank you, Tracy.
Some of this stuff's important to me.
That stuff happens.
Find my birth certificate.
Were you born
Open
here,
up a
Bob?
credit card.
Were you born here?
No,
How long have you lived here?
45 years or something. 4 years.
Yeah, he's
Basically from.
yeah, pioneer by proxy.
thank you for the
Thank
time.
you. Thank you, Tracy.
Maybe
I-
hear from you tomorrow morning.
Yes, 8:15, right? Did we agree on that? Did we shake on it? Okay, Ellen, you want to come up? Gotta go to my next.
Personally, I like keeping the county as the county and the city as the city.
Me too. And I like to stand up for personal,
Do you guys need a break for a few minutes?
personal
Or
property
not?
rights.
You want to just roll right in?
We got so many regulations.
You need a break for a minute?
I do.
Okay.
Do you mind?
No,
Okay.
I'm not sure about the Montezuma water deal. I see on page 14 here, they talk about forming an intergovernmental agreement,
Yeah, an IGA.
but I don't know that, I mean, Montezuma
Did you
Water
get this,
Company is
Ellen?
protected by the federal government,
That we.
so I don't think
Okay. I'll make a copy.
that Montezuma County and City Cortez can say, hey, we're gonna serve water here now. I don't think it can happen. And then I think you're right, it's not up to the property owner. The property owner could sell their Montezuma Water Company tap, petition for a city water tap, and the Montezuma Water Company could say, sorry, you're not, this is our defined service area.
The only thing I don't know is if the city could say, well, okay, we'll annex it for everything else except for water, but we'll let Montezuma Water be the water provider.
And I think Montezuma would be fine with that.
Yeah, but so that's just like a little power trip issue that they wouldn't allow that to happen, but.
I don't think they'd not allow that to happen.
That may be the way.
I don't think it's about the power, I think it's about the income. Montezuma Water Company needs the income.
Yeah, we wouldn't want them raising the price of taps, that's for sure.
They haven't for a while.
Yeah.
Still $6,000. And there's a big influx this year.
When I
Sold
first
quite a
moved
few.
here, I should have bought a bunch of them.
Well, why didn't you?
We ain't any money.
back then.
Yeah.
Are we really gonna talk about noise?
We're gonna make noise.
Just make you an unpaid intern, you know? You get paid?
I don't want to get paid,
Well, money's
then
good.
I have to show up.
It'd be different with it.
Totally different.
I guess I never tied that together that you had your nephew.
Yeah.
Small world, huh?
Wade is Ben's brother,
Never,
Mr. Wade's dad.
yeah, never tied that together.
It's complicated.
Well, most things that were with Stan were complicated, so.
Yeah.
So it's finding that out more and more now, how complicated. Yep,
I feel sorry for him that sucked into that.
yeah. Seems
Maybe
like
they
they're,
can figure it out and settle it here
Yeah.
pretty soon.
got so many different things involved, and sounds like they're getting more of a grasp on it though, so.
Mm-hmm. So,
Is the new quadrant map gonna be available sometime?
That's the same as what we have.
It's the same
The
as what we
quadrant.
have in here?
Yeah, but the future, land use zones.
Right.
I'll give Leanne and she
Okay.
should get it right out to you.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you for letting me have a break. It's possible. Thank you. You're welcome.
holding that knife, I just used the bathroom too.
Okay, good. Wasn't just me. Whew.
Noise.
Why did that guy buy that sports building on top of the hill out at Dolores if he was gonna put all those boats over at the Centurytown,
I don't know what he's doing with it.
Oh, good. I mean, he cleaned it all up.
Yeah. It's a nice building,
Yeah.
decent
Now he's
location.
got a whole crapload of boats out there at Centurytown,
Remember one time the
which
force,
is really not zero.
the boys were trying to sell it to the Forest Service before they built their big new building. They probably should have bought it.
Yeah, that wouldn't fancy enough.
Huh? But no.
Yeah, there wasn't enough expenses there to.
Well, those are pretty nice maps. I bet that took a lot of time putting that together.
It's 100,000.
Yeah, they got a pretty nice program.
The city people are working at a time.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Okay. Well, that is better. This is one of them. Do you have a camper or fifth wheel? Do you have a camper or fifth wheel? Have you ever looked at the crimping on your water lines?
Mm-hmm.
Are they that metal band that has the little bump on top, the cheapest trim? So,
Yeah, I had them come apart. We hadn't had the camper for 2 months. Second time we used it, came apart underneath the
dripping or
sink, yeah,
dripping?
and in the shower, both places.
Have you ever tried to take those frames apart?
No.
I bought the special tool for it.
Mm.
And if you're in a T, say, when you try, I mean, it's so hard. It's like a socket that slips over that little button. And you turn it this way, and then you turn it this way, and then you turn it, and you go back and forth until it breaks. But it takes so much pressure that when you repair that one of the other two are leaking.
Right, because you loosen
Because
it
you're
up.
doing all that, you know, and it's like, I just had to remove a whole section, bring it to Schuster's, rebuild it with good clamps, come back and put it together with shock nuts. So, I couldn't even get to it. It was way up in the corner of the storage and laying it on my back trying to, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, that's why sometimes it's better just to hire somebody to do that.
Yeah, no, I'm one of those guys that likes to do everything myself.
I'm usually, I try to do something that I can't do like
Unless
that.
it's concrete or something.
Yeah.
Big
then
concrete.
Then you hire the right person.
Okay, you guys ready? Burnette's printing off a few more things. Just really quickly here.
We're also seeing an influx
Are the
of
commissioners,
yurts. We've done
today-
3 yurt foundations
Have
this
you?
year, yes.
IGA, did anyone be part of
Yeah,
that?
there's a lot of those.
Well, no, and when
not a
the
tent.
discussions were happening with the city, with Tracy
Not sure.
and their staff
That's
at the
got a
time,
And they're not cheap.
it was more,
They're not cheap.
10, 12
we might be able to be flexible
And
with
they're round.
design criteria, things that we implement into our own land use code that
Well,
says, you know, if you're
countertop,
within, you need to
everything.
Shut in the corner.
like spruce things up a little bit and not be so maybe, you know, heavy industrially not pretty kind of stuff, like in the highway corridors and things like that, gateways. But that was, there was no, I mean, the IGA was brought up, but there was no immediate interest there in that.
Do you know anything that goes on with the road department a little bit maybe.
Yeah, a little bit.
And I
maybe.
hear I've been driving up, down, working up by Jersey Gym. It looks like we're chip sealing 5 miles of Forest Service road. I think I heard that the Forest Service is paying the county to do that. Is that true?
I have no idea on that one.
Well, I know they're working on the Forest Service sign 5 miles up all the way to Transfer Park.
You know, I hear a lot about the Dolores Norwood Road, but not so much about that. I haven't heard, but I will
But
look
they are
into
there,
that.
and there's a sign they're going to chip seal. I think
I was just up
the
there last
24th.
weekend. I didn't see it.
Why?
they just started. They started
Is
this
that-
week.
Is that new subdivision out there, right? Or why are they gonna chip seal it?
It's Road 42. The Forest Service wants it chip sealed, and I think they're paying the county to do it. I don't think there's a contractor in Montezuma County that chip seals anymore. I don't know if Four Corner Material does that, if they just paid now. But if they do, and I was Four Corners Material, I might be a little upset about it.
Let me go grab my land use.
The Forest Service didn't take some of that money and clean up House Creek campground. Weeds and
Oh, is it?
cheap grass everywhere and got tall and never mowed. Ridiculous.
There's probably 6 county gravel trucks hauling gravel up there today, and
Could be a gem.
3 water trucks, 2 blades, and a backhoe, and 2 rollers.
And it's Montezuma County.
Yeah, Rob was up there
Where's this at?
from the above Jackson Lake on Road 42. Once you hit that brown Forest Service sign, the very end of where the chip seal, from where they ended the chip seal, right there close to Forest Service land, all the way to Transfer Park. That's about 5 miles.
That's at Forest Service Road?
I'm pretty sure it is Forest Service Road. But I guess I should ask, Cecil was telling me that the county, Cecil Farman was telling me the county was getting paid for that, and I would hope so, because I don't think it's our road.
There's a road map right there. Far right one.
Which one?
The far right one. It's a county road map. Official.
Okay. No, it was mine. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Ellen, I guess since you brought this to have been bringing this to our attention, I will give you, I mean, if you don't mind giving us a overview of what your thoughts are and what you presented to us and how we can mitigate this issue.
Well, this first came to my attention with the booster station on BB and 12.
Orange, and the orange line said non-Montezuma County Road. Anyway,
Sorry, Ellen was talking.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
We were in the middle.
So like I said, this first came for me to be an issue with the booster station at BB and 12 because
That was by the Haydens.
the Haydens are relatives of mine, and they asked me, how
didn't know
does this
that.
work? And I said, well, I don't know. Let's look at the high impact permit. So I looked at the high impact permit, and I couldn't make heads or tails of it. I looked at the statute, I looked at COGCC, and they seem very conflicting. And so in the interest of clarity for any future person who might want to look up what the noise thresholds are, I just thought it would be a good thing to do to simplify the language a little bit better.
Okay, so I believe I provided you guys all with the, it should have been in your packet, somewhere in there. The summary that Ms. Foster provided us.
This is not it, is it?
Well, that is what we provided. So that, when, in her summary, when she's referencing Colorado revised statutes and things of that nature, that you had what was being referenced. So there should be, you should have one that looks like,
Is this the one we're looking at?
yes, it's a one-page.
Yeah, it pretty much spells it
That one.
out.
It's a one-page deal in there. And you got it.
Did you have more to say? No?
I did speak with John Baxter, I guess before we go too much further on this. He did say that if we do amend the land use code to reflect any changes, even statute requirements, that 30-day notice, he would prefer 30-day notice.
Public notice.
Public notice.
You know, I can buy all this, I don't have a problem with it. My two contentions, or my 2 points are, the definition of residential in Tom and Shauna's case, and any boundary. Now, how do you take any boundary?
Well, that was part of my confusion.
Because you can take the farthest.
You can take the furthest boundary,
Yeah.
or someone else's boundary. It just says any boundary. That's why
But I
always-
mean,
that's why I
the
always like
statute
the
is the
distance.
statute and it rules, and CLGCC rule has their
The
authority.
CLGCC rule is cut and dried, and I think that
They
it's an oil
have
and
to-
gas situation,
Right, they
that's
have
the
to.
rule I have to follow. I don't think we have any concern there. Is that actually what the state says, residential / agricultural / rural?
I believe so. I looked at that.
I think that's what COGCC says. I don't think the state statute has agriculture. Is it? It has residential, and it has commercial, and it has
And light.
industrial.
What page are you looking at?
Residential, commercial, light industrial, industrial.
What page are you on?
This one.
These two right here. Up the second one.
102.
Do you have any noise from golf carts at your place? That's about golf
There's
carts.
Does it?
It's no big deal.
It's like a little, snowmobiles are loud. Golf carts not so much.
Agriculture is exempt except if something else is taking place in agricultural and it's not agricultural.
Yeah.
Probably why they don't have agricultural.
This is saying that, this is Colorado revised statute, and this is listing agriculture is not to exceed. Yet we have it exempt, correct?
Agricultural is,
I think it is in the agricultural area. It's like not the agriculture that's causing the noise, but
it's an outside.
something else there
Well, that's kind of a gray.
It's right here.
The one they're looking
What's gray, the agricultural, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
Exempt
telling you,
whenever, isn't it?
well, it's supposed to be exempt, but it's listed under a zone as agricultural.
Well, that's the agricultural zone, but the agricultural operation is exempt. Whoever's made
Right,
the
if it's
equipment.
happening on
Yeah.
agricultural. Yeah. Well, you know, the way it listed there, residential, agricultural, and rural, because my big question on the Tom and Shauna thing was it really residential? Because it's 99% agricultural and one resident. I mean, you have residents, but they're agricultural residents.
Well, in my opinion, this is residential,
Well, yeah,
you know.
definitely. Well, it's actually commercial too.
Well, right, but you know, yeah, Paradise Village is residential. Brandon's Gate is residential.
You still call it paradise instead of parasite?
So, here,
Man.
on, the COGCC, regulations 802. I didn't look at yours, it's kind of hard for me to read those, but,
What page is that on?
um,
So GCC rules keep
It's under the COGCC.
Yeah. Noise abatement.
okay, so,
About the distance of 350 feet?
no, I was gonna say about who decides what,
Residential?
if it's agricultural or residential. And so
Director
on
in
mine, let's see if I can find it again. So anyway, just this, I printed this off the internet, and so this is just printed straight off the internet, and it shows residential, agricultural, rural, the same as the chart on my statement does there. And then it also says that the type of land use of the surrounding area shall be determined by the director in consultation with the local governmental designee,
Which is
which
myself.
is you.
You're the director.
She is.
No, she's the
She's
local
the
governmental designee. The director would be a COGCC person, right?
And I would think that that would be,
And where are they out of? Denver?
I mean, I could take that as the director being, you know, if our department was larger, whether it could be the director of planning or the Board of County Commissioners. It doesn't say COGCC director, or it doesn't say, I mean, director is very loose language.
Does COGCC stand for Colorado Oil and Gas Commissions?
Conservation.
Conservation.
Do they have a main office
In Denver.
in Denver? So the director,
And there's a director.
Well, we have Matt Lepore, who's our area person.
Mhm.
for
And
the
that-
COGCC or just?
Yes.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah.
we have a director
So,
here.
so I will make sure that's that language. If that's what that means.
It doesn't really seem to matter, because anytime Kinder Morgan's operated out there, they follow the 55-50 rule. I mean, that's what they're,
That's what it's been when they've been testing it? 50 and 55?
55 in a day and 50 at night.
That's what
At
they-
350 feet from that. But it
This-
also says here, except required,
It can be louder when there are
604.
operations involving pipeline or installation or maintenance.
or gas facility installation during the construction.
Mhm.
And then number two says
Well,
in
no,
remote
no, that-
locations.
I'd have to read
You're
604C.
picking and choosing here. You need to read the paragraph before that, I think. It says, or the sentence before that. It says the allowable noise level for periodic, impulsive, or shrill noises is reduced by 5 decibels from the level shown, except as required pursuant to Rule 604. So that exception there applies, in my mind, to impulsive and shrill noises. Not in general. Not the steady noise that you hear.
Sounds to me like you take the yellow jacket plant, runs quiet 99% of the time, but when you shut down a compressor and they blow it down, it makes a shrill, loud noise.
So there's an exception to that, apparently.
I'd have to read 604C2A, but,
Yeah. But see, I'm not asking you to change any of that.
you just want it written down in the.
In the high impact permit
Right.
application or the permit, so that somebody from the general public, like I was at the time, who had no experience in this stuff, could go and look at noise and see what the statute is, then they could do their own Googling and investigation and, you know, go see what it says.
When it comes to oil and gas, and they have to follow that as well as our laws, is it necessary to put anything from GOCC in our land use code? I mean,
Well, maybe not necessary, but to maybe clarify,
As a courtesy to the public.
because they are held to that higher standard. You know, even if our land use code says, you know, that they can do 80, you know, COGCC still regulates. They are still the governing factor of how these people can operate and what regulations they're operating under. They supersede us. So,
If they
Was
have a
he here?
complaint, they call
Was that
COGCC.
the guy
really, not
that's
us.
from the COGCC, was he here at these meetings when Mr. Hayden was here?
no.
That might have
They
been
were
good.
not
Well, no, but I
meetings.
have spoken with him on several occasions, just throughout the process, just letting him know, and I believe you also sent correspondence.
To whom?
Matt,
COGCC.
Yeah.
Lebowski or?
No, not that. Just to Kinder Morgan. It was just to Kinder Morgan. You
Well,
sent,
I didn't send anything in writing
okay,
to anyone,
except for us.
except for you guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would forward on concerns. Any concerns we get, I forward on for sure. Whether they've already been forwarded on by the complainants or anything else. So they were aware of what was going on, and I kept them updated throughout the site visits and sent them the pictures and
and he didn't see anything or alarming enough to get involved?
well, it was going through the mitigation phases, so, you know, I think that
were
Kinder
getting
Morgan and the
a
Haydens
lot
were
of time.
trying to come up with, you know, a meeting point, you know, some common mitigation that they were both
They
happy
did.
with.
They did, didn't they? I mean, things are,
I don't know, we
Fairly
haven't had a
smooth now?
complaint from Tom and Shawna.
they did not.
Well, no, we haven't heard a complaint from them in a while, so
So I was gonna say, we haven't seen Mr. Hayden.
I'm just assuming, which I hate to say
I'm
that.
assuming he must be somewhat
satisfied.
satisfied.
Yeah.
Huh.
Which I think, if I'm stating this correctly, just add some language to the threshold standards that state, you know, oil and gas, per COGCC regulations for oil and gas operations. Here is your,
Yeah, if you're, say you're new to the county and you buy a piece of property and you have no idea about oil and gas or anything, and you get this in your packet, I mean, do you even know what COGCC is, or that they have jurisdiction, you know?
A lot of people don't.
Right, I'm just saying that would be a courtesy to adjoining landowners when they get these packets in the mail, for them just to have a jumping off point to, you know, investigate what it is.
and we can literally, you know, depending on what you guys, how you guys feel about this, what you want to recommend to the Board of County Commissioners. As far
I
as,
just say we break this down into 3 sections: state, COGCC, and agricultural exempt.
okay,
Start with oil and gas, and then second one it would be referring to anything other than oil and gas or mining, whatever. To follow under state regulation.
is that it, Bob? So we're done?
Well, I don't know, but, you know, there's other input here.
which I'll have to talk to John, because, I mean, it's one thing to amend our application. I mean, that pretty much is a one-time meeting with the commissioners, but if we need to actually add that to the land use code
We have to do the
language, then we
30
gotta
days.
do the 30-day notice, so.
Do you have a public meeting for that?
Public hearing. For the land use code, which, I spoke with Bob earlier, and I would like to at least give the land use code a once-over really quick before we do that, because any other, changes that we can possibly make, can just,
Be all taken care of.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, this change wouldn't have any effect on, not having it in the land use code would not have any
bearing
effect
on,
on
yeah.
this, would it?
But, if we're gonna clarify here, we should clarify here.
Right. I agree.
So,
Well, how did you get to COGCC? When you typed in the CRS 25-12-101, you got to that point then? So they could
I
get
don't know, I
there.
Googled lots and lots of stuff back then.
But I mean, without having it
And-
in there, how did you get to it? How did you get to the COGCC? Where did it?
Type in COGCC rules and you'll get 176
Yeah, but that's what I'm
pages.
wondering. But what
I
she's
don't know,
wanting
I
to put
saw
that
it
in there is
thinking-
because
Well,
she
because
wants somebody
under-
to be able to get there, and I'm wondering how she got there if it wasn't in there to begin
I
with.
made lots and lots of phone calls.
That's what I'm just wondering.
And it took me months to figure out what was going on.
Mhm.
And it was, really frustrating. And
Seeing, and this really never bothered me all the times I did permitting for Kinderwagon, because I knew what the rule was, and so this, what it said here didn't matter to me.
Didn't matter what it said there, you had to follow the
Yeah, I knew what the
COGCC
rule was
rules.
for COGCC. But it should be specified. We could just refer to it as the rule number.
stating blank, this.
Something like this.
Well, I don't know
Yeah,
how
I mean, you already got it.
detailed you
anyway.
want to get.
Well, what's-
I would be fine if you just said something like volume as established by COGCC Rule 802. I mean, anybody could Google that and get the chart and see what it is. I mean, if you want to put the chart in there, that's fine with me too. But
Okay. If you guys are fine with that.
I think just refer to the rule.
Yep.
Okay.
I think putting the chart in could just gonna take up a lot of space unless we could put the chart in the land use code.
Okay.
So we would keep this and say like, unless governed by COGCC, then refer to rule,
The rule
so that
number.
this,
Just under standards.
so that this still applies to all other.
Developments or, yeah.
And any other development other than oil, gas, or CO2, which is a gas, would fall under the state regs, which
Okay, yeah. I'm
it does
absolutely-
need correcting. I agree with Ellen. Not very often I do, but on this one I do. It's not
Buy a
good.
lottery ticket on your way home.
yeah, really.
Okay, got it.
That's right here, I just Googled it
And you got it?
and just put in COGCC and just typed in noise.
Yep.
There it is.
802.
802, noise abatement.
Cool.
Ah. Okay. Do we have
Is that
anything
all we
else
have?
for tonight? Yes.
Well, thank you very much.
Well,
Thank you
Thank
for
you for
taking
the work.
interest and putting the time in.
yeah.
Any more
I'm
discussion
impressed.
on this 3 mile? How you guys feel about it?
I think it, like we said, I think you'd like to see anything that they're proposing on that overlay, before, because
Does-
I think that they have different ideas than the county does as far as gateways.
We have different building rates, all kinds. Inspectors.
So I could see, especially in the 1 mile zone, that they're gonna have completely different views and everything. So,
Not gonna we'll see the 1 mile, except that encompasses me.
right.
question that we should know the answer to this on property
What
taxes.
else we discussed tonight?
Even stuff within
That's
the
it?
city, the property tax.
Good. Thought maybe they'd want to go over that Archuleta.
Oh, well, we
that
get a
other
portion.
county, whatever they
Portion of the property tax.
Say that out loud.
So the more they expand, the less money.
They forgot about it.
We'll go on, even on property
We've been
taxes, let alone that we
trying
don't
to
have
keep
our
that low
sales
key.
tax.
Right,
Any
so we're
money
not
anyway.
getting any,
Yeah.
yeah, we can promote
Need to burn this.
economic development and
never got a
commercial uses and stores and whatever out there. And we're getting butt kissed.
Well, Chris had a pretty good time up there. Wendy.
He said
Is your
that's
address
the
still
way it
there,
is.
Joey?
No.
You're in Cortez?
Is that crazy?
So the,
My, oh,
so the RV park is the lowest too,
The RV park's in Dolores now.
not the lowest now.
Oh, Cortez phone number probably, ProBuild does a Cortez phone number. Of course, we have a Cortez
Have you
phone
seen
number
it?
where we're at, and we're in Maine.
Did you see that place on the 4th of July?
Over where?
Stone's RV park? Yeah, I know.
They're full. They're kicking some major tail over there.
Cool.
They did a good
I
job.
would never thought that.
They're doing it